Hello everybody, this is Maniac 4 Bricks, and we're here today with a new LEGO MOC video. Today we'll be looking at a MOC that I prepared only about a night or two ago, and earlier today in fact. This is based on a bumper car amusement park ride, which simply has a motorized function to it so that the cars will actually move back and forth. We'll take a closer look at it now under my studio so you can see how everything goes together and how this thing moves. Here is a closer look at the MOC I've built thus far. Keep in mind, there's still modifications to make and things to add on here, but getting the main components down, I'm really happy with this thing. It took 3 hours of making just the mechanism on top, first building it, then testing it, then making sure that it ran the way I wanted it to, and then another 3 hours of modifying this to better combinations of colors, modifying the bumper cars themselves and the arena around it, more like cosmetic work, things that just make it look better. But for what I've done thus far, I'm actually pretty happy with how things turned out. So this area in the front would be where the queue line is going to be. There'll be one entrance on this side, one exit over here with some kind of blocking in between and a step up and down to either side. There isn't going to be any steps on the inside of here. Most of it is tiled, and we'll actually get a closer look at that in just a moment. Most of the outside, I've tried to make it so that you can see it through there, but I might modify that a bit more over time. Along the back, I've just attached some of the power functions components. For right now, it's not the final resting place for any of these items. I mean, for the motor, probably. But the good thing about this is the motor is easy to detach if I need to use this for another project. And then just a little bit of work to add it right back in and line it up with everything. But it'll work nonetheless. I only have it turned up for one crank in either the right or left direction on the remote itself so that each of the cars can move. It's the slowest speed that seems reasonable for making the cars move back and forth without being too blurry, but I might modify this later with some gears to try to make it a little bit slower and run the motor at a faster pace. I have tested this enough that it would really slow down if it ran for more than like 30 minutes or so. There was another issue that I had every so often with this, and that was what you're seeing here. The stoppers that are inside of the main mechanism would sometimes clash with the crank mechanism. I don't know the technical terms for it off the top of my head, but basically these two pieces would collide with each other, and simply just moving it or nudging it a little bit will keep the thing still running. Let's get a look on the inside of this right now. The cool thing about this design is that I've made it actually kind of modular. You can take off most of the top area of it to take out everything, including the bumper cars themselves. They are attached onto the mechanism on top, which I'll get to in just a bit. So now we could take a closer look on the inside to see how the tiling is laid out, see how the tires are attached in there with different round cylinder 1x1s. There is a small tiled walkway around the area and kind of gives an idea of where the bumper cars would be. Like, you just get to about the ends of these tiles in any direction. And yeah, it seems like the right aesthetic for what a bumper car arena would look like. So I'm really happy with how that laid out. So here's a close-up look at the bumper cars themselves. They are identical except for a couple of color changes here and there. You can fit either a regular minifigure or a short-legged minifigure in here, nice and easy, so kids and adults can play in the bumper car arena. I really tried to make this as compact as possible. This is like just enough space for in the arena so that even when the cars go next to each other, they don't actually bump like to knock the other person out, but they'll just have like enough room to brush past each other without causing any issues. Every so often they do actually hit each other, but they don't cause any catastrophes. I was actually really happy with the design here, which was kind of inspired by the Joker bumper car polybag from several years ago from DC Superheroes. But I had my own spin on it with how the plates and different tiles and slopes went around this thing. I did like adding in some of those quarter round slope piece or tile pieces, give it more like a cushiony area. You can tell a little bit better with the adult minifigure in here. I also did like adding in the safety bar as opposed to a steering wheel, so they're nice and safe on the ride. And the color combination works very well. Like, it doesn't feel too off about the light bluish gray and black in there. I would want to substitute out the Keat orange plate in there, but otherwise I think the colors work very well and seems very good all the way around. Neither of these have wheels in the bottom. They actually started out with that when I first made this, but I felt that it wasn't really doing anything. It didn't really catch on to the tiles much more than the bricks did here, so I was okay with leaving those off of here. And it was just like a little bit of space above the tiles that it probably wouldn't have even reached them, so I was okay with that. So this crazy combination of parts is the top of the bumper car arena, but it's also the main mechanism to make the cars move back and forth. This is known as the Trammel of Archimedes, or in LEGO terms, the Kentucky Do-Nothing Machine. I say that because there was a book from 1998 partnered with Klutz called LEGO Crazy Action Contraptions, as opposed to the 2008 version does not include the similar instructions, but they do have a section in here of a machine known as the Kentucky Do-Nothing. You can also find Do-Nothing Machine online, and it might bring it up, but it might be more difficult. Anywho, this is the more basic form of it, and I've just upgraded this. It actually has the same layout, just by coincidence, but it does have a few modifications here and there. For example, the points that are moving back and forth aren't as thick as the other ones. I did try them before, but they would always get stuck in between the lanes, so I figured I would just make it more simple, and it worked a lot better that way. Basically, this is how it works. The motor is powering a crank that is moving back and forth in a 360-degree fashion. You can see the white Technic lift arm in there that is 7 holes, or 7 studs wide. The crank is 4 studs, as you can see it in a dark gray or dark bluish gray color. On the ends of those would be the attachments for the bumper cars themselves to move back and forth. The idea is that when the crank moves, each of these points will have a lane to go in between, be it horizontal or vertical, and they will always move back and forth through those lanes as the crank turns itself around. There's enough, or should I say, there's a lack of friction in there, as you can see by the Technic pin, that half pin that's in the middle of the lift arm, to allow these to move back and forth. And it creates this motion where these two objects will always walk through the same intersection, but never actually collide with each other. Ironic, because bumper cars is all about colliding with other people. So I'll show you from this angle how this thing runs. You can see now how the crank is turning itself around and how each of these will go through different lanes. It's only going to be one object that is going to move horizontally, one object that will move vertically. There is never going to be a time where something from here will go to something over here. And here it is with the bumper cars attached to the Trammel of Archimedes. You can also look up the ellipsograph, I believe it's called, which also brings about the same result for this method. And basically there would be a longer lift arm in the end of it so that you can use that to draw a circle, kind of like how a compass works. With all that said and done, there are definitely some things that I need to update with this in a future video. I do need to work on the top section of this thing so that I can have a better enclosure. I don't think as far as that goes there will be the battery box and the IR receiver on top of there. I think I could easily just move the wires around and they could sit along the side of the attraction, or at least somewhere towards the back so that it's not going to be interfering with it. The other thing is what you see right now, which just so happened to happen by coincidence. All I need to do is simply tap on it to move them out of the way, or try to readjust the stoppers themselves in order to keep it moving. But it is something that I do want to fix, and I could probably use another piece that could go in there to keep the movement going in a more perpetual motion. I still have to test this for a longer period of time. It's currently been running for over 20 minutes before this video was made. I'm basically going to run it for a long time so that way when I bring this to conventions, it'll be easier to tell if something goes wrong, then I know how to fix it, and that it'll be running for a long time for the course of the convention hours. Along with the modifications to this thing, I do still need to make a queue line that would go along the front and possibly on the sides here. And also I need to find a way to make the windows a little bit more clear. It's a little hard to see inside of here just from the outside perspective, so luckily you got this video with a couple insider perspectives from me. But one thing I do want to fix with this is trying to make it so that you could actually see through it a lot more clearly instead of having the trans clear panels in the way or those barriers along halfway points. I mainly did that at first just to be sure that this thing could stick together and I could test it properly, but I think with a few pieces here and there I could modify this and it'll still look good and still run well and not fall apart or anything from the weight of the top of it, but it'll still be easier to see on the inside. So we'll see more about that in an upcoming video. But thank you for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If there are any further questions you have, let me know in the comments down below. And I will see you next time with more videos, so check back with the update. So subscribe so you can check that out. And there will be more updates on other LEGO MOCs I've been working on, so you can check back for more of those when you are subscribed to the channel. We'll see you next time with more LEGO videos.